Good evening. This is the Township of Grosse Ile Bridge Commission meeting, Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Certainly. Chairman Smith-Bauer,
Here.
Vice Chair McCartney,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
and Supervisor Porcerelli,
Here.
and Manager Thiel,
Here.
our Township Engineer Sahio,
Here.
Finance Director,
Here.
and Bridge Manager Farrell.
And of course yourself.
And I'm here. We're all here.
Okay. In reviewing the agenda, one item that we want to make a change to, we're going to move the recommendation for adoption of the toll bridge ordinance from an action item to a discussion item later in the meeting. Also, in discussion items, I will add a short update on the status of the bids based on our meeting this morning with H&H. Any other changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve is amended.
Have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Are there any presentations to be made other than the one you're going to do later? Okay. Public comment. We're open for public comment here, if there's any public that would like to speak. All right. Then let's move to the approval of the minutes. Any comments on the minutes?
I hope you all got the copy I sent you via email, because when I printed the ones in the packet, they were unreadable. So I reformatted them.
Thank you.
If there's no comments, could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved and supported?
Supported.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. We'll move on to the toll bridge financials.
Derek, how do I remove this so I can use that?
Push that up.
And then, did it come up?
It will in a second. And then you take this and you put it there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Good evening. For the financials this month, we have quite a bit of catching up to do. I want to make sure you have enough time so that you understand everything. If there's something that I don't address, especially with the March year end, that you have a question on, please don't hesitate to ask. So the first set of financials are the final figures for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2026. And this, the toll bridge fund is considered an enterprise fund, which means it operates like a normal, almost like a normal company. So so these are our final audited figures, and there are some things on here that you have not seen before, because during the year, this is the first year, and we operate on a cash basis. So some of the things I've highlighted are the delinquent tax receivable. So for our property tax collections, we stop collecting property taxes on February 28th is the last day. Then our tax roll is sent to Wayne County. And so obviously at that point, we have not collected all of our property taxes. So the 44,000 represents the amount of property taxes that's still due to us from what was not collected from the 2025 tax year. We will get most of that from Wayne County because most of that is for real property. And then we have a very small portion that's for personal property, and those taxpayers, that gets paid at the township. But again, because the exemption level for personal property taxes keeps increasing, that's just less that we have in actual collections. Then a couple lines below that is due from the tax collection fund. So at March 31st, that represents the amount that the township actually collected through February 28th that we had not dispersed out to the individual funds. Everything goes into one fund, the tax collection fund, and then we periodically transfer the money to all the buckets. We're required also to send the appropriate property taxes to the Grosseal schools in Wayne County twice a month. So everything stops on March 31st. So at that point in time, we still had to pay a little over $9,000 from that tax collection fund into the toll bridge fund. Looking at the left, the two account numbers that I highlighted in orange, all the accounts between and including those account numbers are the fixed assets of the toll bridge fund. So that's the actual toll bridge, the land, the equipment, everything that was purchased on April 1st of 2025, to go through and split everything into different categories, because different categories have different useful lives and different depreciation. And then you can also see all the negatives is the depreciation for the first fiscal year.
One question on that. The sum of all those parts, is that pretty much total, the toll bridge, 13.5 million that you had previously
Correct.
Indicated?
Correct. So the biggest thing that's not included in that figure, and I highlighted it, the line that says construction work in progress, a little over $1 million. Those were all the payments to H&H for the engineering costs. That becomes part of the cost basis of the upgrades. So that will stay as construction in progress until the upgrades are completed, and then they'll be part of the upgrades and be depreciated when the project's done. So that represents the entire amount of payments that we made to H&H during the first fiscal year. I'm gonna jump down to just for a minute, the liability section, the
Teresa,
accrued,
Question on that, is that gonna accrue so we can work towards the $3+ million we wrote for the design and engineering construction? Or are we gonna restart for this fiscal year?
now we start accumulating costs for this fiscal year, and that'll be on the revenue and expenditure report until I get to the year end.
So to find out how.
We're not near the $3 million yet.
I know, I just wonder, because I go through this, my guy's gonna have to add the prior
Yes.
fiscal year. Okay, that
Yeah.
was because you said you were doing it on a cash accrual, cash.
Yeah, the revenue and expenditures are accounted for on a cash basis during the year until I get to the year end. And you can see I do a lot of work at the year end, and I don't have an accountant, we don't have the staff, and that's what the managers are used to also looking at their financials is knowing what money's coming in and what money's going out and where's it going.
Thank you.
Yep. Jumping down to the liabilities, the accrued sick pay. So on March 31st of every year, based on the leave banks that the employees have on that date, which is their vacation, sick, vacation and sick, we have to do a calculation that what would the cost be if everybody left on March 31st? So that's the calculation for the 2 employees that we have at the toll bridge. At this point, so now the items that I highlighted in pink, under the assets, there's a deferred net pension liability. Then there's under the liabilities, there's a net pension liability and deferred inflows. So those 3 accounts, plus there's an account on the revenue and expenditure report. We're required to have, we have an actuarial study report that's issued by MERS. It's as of December 31st every year. And that prepares a calculation of what our total, based on the employees and retirees we have at that point in time, what's the township's liability in total. The good analogy is if you have a mortgage, instead of recording the payments you made during the year, you're recording the whole mortgage. So the deferred inflows and outflows, that's based on the there's calculations done in the actuarial report. Probably the most important numbers is the net pension liability. That's the estimate of what would be paid out if we have 1 full-time employee at the toll bridge, if that person collected retirement for the remainder of her life.
So on that, so the deferred inflows and the deferred net pension, those are actual cash accounting that are hitting the accounts today,
Yeah, it's
where the liability is more of
yeah.
a projection accrual.
Right. So the deferred outflows, which is the last line under the assets, that's an estimate of money that's gone out that's actually for a future period, and then the opposite for the deferred inflows. It's part of the calculation that's done in the actuarial report. So it's based on changes and based on investment income, changes in valuation, gains and losses, and everything else that's in that actuarial report. So for down at the bottom of the fund balance section, so for the first fiscal year, we had excess revenues of $2,172,000.
Let's clap.
I'm sorry?
Let's clap, right?
Yes.
We ran this
Yes,
above budget,
yes.
right, of the tune of 2.17 million. So for those watching at home, right, as far as this is not a losing entity.
So, but, keeping in mind, we started the year with,
Negative.
with what we incurred more expenses at March 31st of '25, getting ready to purchase this toll bridge, so we actually had a loss of $1,151,000 coming into the year. We had excess revenues of $2,172,000, so our ending fund balance for the toll bridge fund is $1,021,000 at March 31st of '26.
Teresa, can you point out what our existing bond revenue is? Which I'm assuming is in a separate account. As far as our bond revenue we brought in from the original issuance from Series 1 versus
okay.
the expenditures to date
Right.
as well.
So the the bond on the first phase was the 21,845,000. That's up there because our first payment wasn't due until April 1st. And so we are estimating $37 million, depending on how the bids come in, plus or minus, for phase two. Plus our excess fund balance, will be used towards covering expenses once the toll bridge is closed and we don't have the bridge fare coming in, and also to go towards and minimizing the amount that we have to borrow for phase two.
So just to clarify, your $1 million amount is your operational differential, right? Your
Correct.
difference between your revenue from operations and your expenditures from operations.
Correct.
But that does not take into consideration cash in bank that might be bond proceeds above expenditures or projected expenditures. Is that accurate, an accurate statement?
That's correct, yes.
Do you know what that dollar figure is?
At March 31st, we had the first two lines on this report of about $11 million in the bank.
And we still have work under contract that hasn't fully been paid for, i.e. engineering expense, that those proceeds are due fund, right?
Correct.
But we would anticipate a fund balance, obviously, in that bond revenue account above and beyond the expenditures that we're anticipating for Series 1 dollars.
How did we account for, last year we had the infrastructure fund, I think it was 750,000 left over
Oh, you're
from the
talking about
sewer.
the relief on the millage,
Yeah,
so
Oh.
I don't know where she has that accounted for in here, but
That's coming up.
yeah.
that's yet to
Okay.
come.
Now, the presentation here in April, which was not subject to audit yet, of course, was about $700,000 higher on the net revenue versus expenditure. And I assume you can maybe point out to us when you get through the P&L where that comes from.
Sure,
you.
absolutely. One thing that I did not highlight on the balance sheet is the accrued interest, and that's part of the difference. At March 31st, I have to, even though the interest payment was not due until April 1st, I have to accrue the interest through March 31st. At each year end, I have to accrue the interest based on the number of days that have lapsed from the last interest payment or from the beginning until March 31st. So that was, that accounts for a lot of it. And you'll see that in the interest expense when I get to the profit and loss. For March 31st of 2026, our total revenue was $6,381,000. The activity for March it's our normal activity for the month plus the final adjustment for the full property tax amount. That's why that $544,000 is in the activity for the month in the third column. Then under the expenses, so one of the biggest increases for the month was the line that I have highlighted in pink, which goes with the other three accounts I have highlighted in pink on the balance sheet. So that's and this is a large amount this year because it's the first year we've had to do this. So again, this is the total amount that's projected, that if the full-time individual collects retirement with MERS for her lifetime, this is our projected liability expense during that time.
So we're accounting for it, but nothing's being paid towards it.
Correct. That's why on the balance sheet, there's a liability of $192,000.
So keep in mind, this is end of fiscal year 2025.
No,
Six,
Yeah.
2026, 2025 to 2026.
26.
And we had split the personnel cost within that fiscal year. That's why these numbers appear off as it relates to staffing contract, salaries full-time. Obviously, with this fiscal year, it's gonna be more representative of that arrangement because it's the whole fiscal year rather than half of what we had last year. Or
Correct.
the arrangement that was split last year.
Correct. So these financials reflect 9 months of us having everyone as our employees and 3 months with a staffing company. So then the first line item I have highlighted in yellow is for the staffing contract. So the activity for the month is $125,000. So normally, it's in the $60,000 range, but again, during the year, we're doing things on a cash basis. We're a month behind, so when I got the March bill in April, I had to accrue it and put it back into into March. So that's why it shows 2 months there, but if you look at the amount for year-to-date, it's for the entire year, it's $188,000, which is basically a little over $60,000 a month, which is what we've been paying. So that's for 3 months. Professional services, you see a negative for the month of over $759,000. That was my process, included my process for moving all the expenses related to H&H onto the balance sheet as construction in progress.
You're basically capitalizing it.
Correct. Yes. Under administrative expense, again, that's another entry that's done at the end of the year. It's every fund in the township is assessed an administrative expense by the general fund to take into account all the indirect costs that come out of, that are incurred by the general fund. My time, my payroll person's time for doing the payroll, our accounts payable person's time for paying the bills, the township manager's time. So we have a pretty standard calculation that we use township-wide for that. And that's what I had budgeted.
Just a question on that item. Now, back in April, we had a much smaller number there. So this was,
For administrative expense?
yeah, in the unaudited,
Oh,
yeah. And I'm just wondering if these are the expenses that were actual, is there a way to kind of capture that going forward so we don't hit it all at the end of the year?
well, it's a function of revenue. So if there was an amount in that line item in April, I've probably moved it out of there by now because, and somebody inadvertently coded something to that account, because that account should only be used for my calculation at the end of the fiscal year, once I have all the total revenue. It's a percentage of revenue. So it's difficult to do. I mean, I can estimate it and then, based on the current, now that I have a number for the current year, I can estimate it based on that each month. And then I do a final adjustment.
Okay.
And these that you've covered, we don't expect those to change, right? Because this is year-end accounting, so the GASB.
These are the final
Yeah,
numbers.
these
Yep.
five, this GASB, the deferred
Yep.
inflow, that's this year-end.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
this is
they,
it.
they won't change.
Nope.
Perfect.
Insurance and bonds, there was an increase of 68,000. I had, one of the policies I had in prepaid expense, and when I was doing the year-end close, I realized it actually had the time period was actually through March 31st, so I had to make that adjustment. Maintenance computer software, that's where we have the monthly payments to valet manager. So normally our payments are between 18 and 19,000. So for March, it was 37,000, again, because there's a month delay, but I had to accrue the month of March, which is paid in April, into this year end. So there were in effect, two payments.
On valet manager, if I recall reading the contract, we had to give them, what, Derek, like 60 days notice if we were going to suspend it, right, as far as, for the
that's
first
right.
year, after the
Yeah.
first year. So we're in this period where if we know we're going in construction on, say, my birthday, October 30th, if anyone's writing that down, we have to notify them 2 months ahead of time. So I don't know if how we flag that, but we want to, so we don't incur cancellation charges.
Right, correct. And while we're talking about that, the staffing company, it's a one-year contract. So I
Oh.
just have to verify how much notice to give him.
Oh,
and
so
which
that's
is what I'm
another
gonna
one we
start
got,
working
yeah.
on, yeah.
Yeah, valet manager was good. They called it out in the contract, but Woman, I don't recall.
Right. Down to where it's depreciation expense. So the actual depreciation expense for the year was a little over $251,000. And again, that's an entry I do at the end of the year along with it says a township-wide entry. The equipment purchase, again, that's the part of capitalizing equipment purchases that were expensed during the year, and those were the amounts that was capitalized. And the same thing under computer network, that's why there's a negative 41,000. So, and then the other most significant change is the very last line item, the bond interest. That's where I I accrued all the interest through March 31st, which was basically almost all of the interest payment that was due April 1st, because there's only a one-day difference. So then the final result for the year is the second column, the 2,172,000, which agrees with excess revenue, which agrees with the balance sheet. Any questions on the year end? Anything I didn't talk about that you have questions on? The next 2 months will go a little much quicker.
Do you think, are the GL codes, you think this is set for the year, or we're gonna have to add one or two? So we're set now?
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So we're gonna jump to the month of June. We didn't have a meeting in July. So now that we have all the accounts set up on the balance sheet, a good number of them are not gonna change during the year because they're done annually at the end of the year. But overall, and this is, those numbers we're comparing because I had March, so I just compared it, what happened in total between March and June. So our assets went down 742,000, which is basically our cash that went down. And that's mainly because of the bond payment that was made April 1st, that the principal payment was 405,000, and the total liabilities decreased by 702,000. If you compare this balance sheet to the March one, you'll see in March we had accounts payable. I record those payables on March 31st, and then I immediately reverse them on April 1st so that the expense isn't doubled up when it's actually paid. And the amount due to the general fund for expenses that were originally came out of the general fund was over 200,000 at March 31st, and now it's down to 41,000 because we transferred the money to cover those costs. So for the 3 months ended June 30th, we actually have a loss of $39,000. And you can see the beginning fund balance is the $1,021,000 that we ended March 31st with. So for the month of June, our total revenue was $388,000, which is right in line with our average revenue for the month. And the money that's coming from the other fund, that's what this, that's the second from the bottom account, where that's 668,000. There's still some more money that needs to be, or assets that need to be moved that will increase that to approximately 700,000. Just I have not accounted for that yet. Looking at the expenditures, everything is normal for the month. Nothing, no big variances, everything as expected. The staffing contract for the month was $63,000. So we had total expenses of $123,000 for the month. Any questions?
Where are we on the new Bobcat?
You bought it, it's sitting there.
Yeah,
Okay.
We're using it.
it was in August.
It's like I disappear for 8 or 9 weeks at a time. I haven't seen it.
Gotta use a toll bridge to see it.
I did. I went through in the evening just so I could see the beautiful lights. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
That was nice.
So for the month of June, we had income of $264,000, which brought our year-to-date loss down to $39,000. Any questions on June? So this is the balance sheet as of July 31st. Our assets increased by $123,000, which is, again, we do things pretty much on a cash basis. So when we get to the profit and loss, our profit for the month will be consistent with that. And very small change in the liabilities. So at July 31st, we now have excess revenue year-to-date of $84,640. So this is the revenue and expenditures for as of and for July 31st. So for the month of July, again, very consistent revenue, $389,000 instead of $388,000. And in the expenditures, again, everything's very consistent except for the professional services. We had a payment to H&H. It's actually, and just so you know, this payment was through a date in April. There was some mix-up with the delivery of this invoice originally, so it was a little bit delayed because we're going to have another pretty large payment in August as well. So everything else is standard for the month. So we had total expenditures of $264,800. So that brings us to excess revenues for the month of $124,000, and our year-to-date excess revenues is currently $84,640. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my previous thank you wasn't that, it was gonna be quicker this time. I meant thank you for your report. Just so you know.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Year end in 2 months, all in less than 20 minutes. Really well done.
Okay, moving on to action items.
Well, that's been changed, right?
So we, first of all, we're moving the, as I mentioned earlier, the ordinance to a discussion section, so we'll skip over that first item. Next is the recommended Bendzinski and Company as financial advisors for issuance of Series 2 toll bridge bonds. Before I get into the motion that I had suggested, are there any comments or discussions that anybody wants to?
That's
Oh, I don't have page 2. Yeah, it might be going to back. Let me grab a different one.
Are we missing something?
No, I don't have the second page of that, I'll grab it.
Okay,
Yeah, it's my fault. Here, oh, I got an extra. Just the page 2. It's that back page of just the back. Yeah, thank you. That's what I missed.
well, I sent around a suggested motion that I'll read into. The motion would be, the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees intends to enter into a contract with Bendzinski and Company to serve as the township's municipal finance advisor for the issuance of unlimited tax general obligation bonds. The Board of Trustees has requested that the Grosse Ile Toll Bridge Commission review the potential board action and provide recommendations or comments to the board. The Toll Bridge Commission provides the following comments. The Toll Bridge Commission does not have specific expertise in bonding. The decision to use Bendzinski and Company to serve as the township's municipal financial advisors for the issuance of UTGO bonds appears to be a sound decision. Bendzinski has provided similar services to the township in the past and has recently served as municipal financial advisor for the UTGO bonds in the previous bond issue for the toll bridge. Next, the scope of services submitted by Bendzinski and Company mirrors the services requested by the township. Next, the fee for Bendzinski and Company services is referenced in the fee schedule but not specifically calculated for the potential maximum bonding amount of $37,885,000. This par amount may not be exactly $37,885,000, but we suggest a sample calculation be referenced as a maximum fee amount. That would, in effect, go through those calculations, and the number that we had, Daryl, was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, $51 million, or $51,000 plus. Just as a reference, so you know where you're standing. Next, the Bendzinski Company's bond sale options and discussion was very interesting and informative to the commission. We appreciated reading that. So the Toll Bridge Commission finds no reason to object to the township entering into a contract with Bendzinski and Company for these services. You notice that stops short of saying we recommend, because we don't feel we're experts in the bond area. But again, the Toll Bridge finds no reason to object to the township entering into a contract with Bendzinski and Company for these services. So that is the suggested motion that I put on the table.
Did we need a second for that, Patrick?
I need a second, yeah.
Yeah, okay, second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, discussions?
Not as related to the motion around Bendzinski. I did have a question for Teresa as far as, at what point do we find out the bond, the term duration, and the annual debt service of the Series 2?
When the bonds go out for bid, and that's part of what Bendzinski does, is they oversee all the bids that come in, and they do their analysis, and then they make a recommendation for who to award
So
that to at that point.
okay, so we'll
it's-
find out what that is when they're
It's
done.
kind of a little bit later, yeah.
Thank you. So here again, separate from what you said, but it was,
Okay.
since we're talking about bonding.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Patrick, can I just bring
Please.
something up? I just want to tell you, I think you were spot on that response. The people on this bridge commission, I think, have more expertise in bridge matters than I know anybody else probably in the township. Obviously besides the engineer and maybe some specialty people that we've hired as consultants. But when it comes to bonding, I don't think that we're the group to decide about what company, what person, what bond, what amount, what this, what that is appropriate. That's for the township board. I know it was asked to be sent back here, but I think your response was spot on. I think it was excellent. It explains exactly, step by step, what you think, what we thought as a group. And I get it, I play two roles. One is on the township board, but the township board is the one that does the bonding. You know, we do it with the consultants, and we're the ones who get the consultants to do the bonding. So I just appreciate at least you looking at that. We looked at it as a group, came up with that. You guys came up with that, not me, that those answers. That's why I'm thanking you. But I think will go to the township board, and then it'll be just resolved there. But thank you for that. That was absolutely spot on. What I believe that this board's, not abilities, but what the capabilities and where we're at and what we should be doing. So,
Thank you. Any other comments?
This doesn't change the motion, but it was nice to read that the township has a AA rating with S&P, so I wouldn't have known that without reading this. And it was also nice to read about all of the regulatory bodies that oversee organizations like Bendzinski. So there's a lot of oversight.
Okay, if there's no other comments, all in favor of the motion, signify aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay. So that gets us into manager report. Toll Bridge Manager, Maureen.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I wanted to first talk about the 250th celebration. It went off with great, a lot of good comments coming back from the community. The layout, how the Historical Society did it was absolutely amazing. as if you read any of it, it was like everybody kept commenting, it was like an old-fashioned movie where everybody kind of just gathered for the city, and a lot of activities that, I didn't get to see a lot of it because I was at my booth, but, you know, things that people were coming up and telling me what was going on was just wonderful. It was really well accepted. Word got out that we were doing the drawing for 310 crossings, and once that got out, our little booth was quite busy. Everybody really enjoyed that. You know, I got bribed a couple times, but told them that I was not the one that was pulling the names. So that worked out wonderful. Kids enjoyed looking at the that picture I brought back where I showed everybody the old type of tokens and how we used to pay and everything. That was absolutely a hit. You know, a lot of questions were brought, you know, up to me on that. So I'm glad I had some history with that I could share with people. So, you know, I think we did a wonderful job as a team with the commission, all your input with that and everything. I think it turned out really well for us. So hopefully, we all of a sudden started getting a lot of new applications, so I'm hoping that had something to do with that, because we did have that available for people and had conversations about how to go about it. And so thank you for everybody's support in that. I do have one little thing I want to put out, and this was a little girl. Is this on? I want to thank Phoebe. This was in our little goodie bag that we handed out, and that was one of the funnest things. She took that crayons, drew that, and came back and offered it to me. So that was my highlight of receiving that from you know, she was 7 years old and just thrilled to be able to draw that. And she did it pretty close to the button that we handed out.
Yes.
So just a little shout out to Phoebe and thank her. So, so moving on to,
Maureen, could we just stop for a minute?
Yep.
Do you have any idea how many buttons and how many pamphlets you handed out? And maybe goodie
the
bags?
buttons, we probably at least 125. I did give the remaining to the recreation department because I was told they kind of put together a welcoming package to any people that are coming and purchasing homes. So I thought that would be something that they could add into it along with applications. I gave them applications for the to get a tag to become a customer of ours. And then the pamphlets, I had about 250 there, and I also handed those pamphlets to the recreation department, and there was probably about 60, maybe 70. So a lot of people loved having that with the history in it. So, yeah, it was nice. And
Great.
the Tootsie Rolls did go. So, any other questions about the Centennial Farm?
I just wanted to say
Celebration?
thank you very much for all your efforts on this 250th.
Oh,
It
you're
was a
welcome.
great event.
Yeah, it was
and,
fun.
And for everybody involved, especially you and Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
And Amy, I don't want to forget it, Amy, she, my assistant at the toll bridge, she did a
Yes.
wonderful job putting things together for us.
And a special thanks to the township engineer for
Yes.
a wonderful contribution that covered a lot of the costs for buttons and pamphlets and
Yes,
so
yes.
forth. Very much appreciated.
So thank you. The operations over at the bridge, we did get our Bobcat and they are loving it. So, works wonderful, has a lot of different, it's updated, so has some cameras, things like that that we did not have with our old Bobcats. The operations are going smoothly. You know, we, you know, every day we usually have some kind of challenge, but the staff now, they're been there long enough, so they're getting to understand how to handle some of that situations on their own, which I'm happy about, you know. And the decorations we thought were great that for the celebration. We just recently had those taken down. So we have them packed for, you know, 4th of July for next year. Or, you know, hopefully we'll do something with them. So, yeah, any questions that you have for me on anything? Okay, we did have all the, I'm sure you're probably going to have conversations, but the companies that were bidding. You know, we had approximately 8 come through, and that went very smoothly. So,
Thank you for coming in on your vacation.
oh, no
Or he's on
problem.
vacation.
Well, I didn't realize that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. We had an engineering review meeting this morning. The purpose of that was to discuss where we stand on the bids and what's going on. H&H and Zweibel led the meeting. The bids for the toll bridge are due Friday, September 11th at 4 p.m. here in the township. And Ann provided a synopsis for us. She's expecting 4, maybe 5 bids to come in. I won't go through the detail because I don't want to leave somebody out that might come in with a bid. It appears as though the information is there. She's been answering questions. It's moving ahead. And we will schedule another engineering review to look at the bids Monday, September 14th. And we'll at least get a view of what the bids are after Ann has had a chance to look at them. Our intent would be to then bring that to the next commission meeting, which is scheduled for the 16th, which is too close. So our suggestion now is to move the commission meeting to September 22nd rather than the 16th. And at that point, if everything goes well,
23rd, we think, is that the
23rd,
23rd, Patrick?
yeah, 23rd, yes, sorry. September 23rd. Our intent at that point, if everything goes well, would be to make a recommendation on what to do with the bids. Hopefully to award it to a contractor, a recommendation to do so. That recommendation would of course be made to the township board.
6 p.m., correct, Patrick?
What's that?
The change is also 6 p.m. the same, right?
Yeah,
That meeting.
change 6 p.m., yes,
So it's
thank you.
official now, Mark the 23rd.
Yes, September 23rd, 6
Okay.
p.m. Instead of September 16th. And as far as I know, that date is available and,
I believe so, yeah, Wednesdays are usually available.
okay, very good, all right. Several of you were on the conference call with me. Any comments or adds to the discussion from this morning?
Just a point of interest for everyone to know, one of the qualifications for bidders is that they've had experience with movable bridges. So I think that's a very good, sound way to proceed for the township.
Okay, so we're headed in the right direction on that activity. All right. Next, let's discuss the toll bridge ordinance, and I'm going to let you take the lead on that, Christine.
Thank you, Patrick. Derek and I thought we were home free. We had a draft ordinance, and it was coordinated with the township attorney. We have made some changes since you last saw it a few meetings ago. But there have been situations that have arisen that are now giving us reason to consider making some full additions to what you had in your packet and what's posted on the website. So we've had some really interesting suggestions from our police chief, and I wonder, sir, if you would like to address us with your thoughts about the ordinance. And so there's no suspense. E-bikes, e-scooters, we've all been hearing about them, and now we're hearing about them with respect to the bridge as well. And there were no references to those in the draft ordinance that's in your packet, and maybe that's an omission we need to correct.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I didn't really prepare much for this, but I can tell you that I've had conversations with Derek. I've had one with Joe here not too long ago. One of the things that I saw with the ordinance, and I don't think that if you live here, you didn't see the incident that we had about a week ago with the young riders that did not stop for the officer, and we were able to identify one, and we're working off of that. But what brought to light with that is what do you want traversing or going across the toll bridge? Okay. With e-bikes and all of the different modes of transportation that seem to be changing daily, how are you going to word an ordinance that's going to protect the public, the rider, and the safety of going back and forth on that bridge? So a good ordinance starts with, and it's the definition, how do you define an e-bike or an electric mode of transportation? And Christine, I don't know if you saw the recommendation that I gave for that.
Yes.
I think it explains it very well. It pretty much covers anything motorized, but it goes into depth on what that is, okay? So what it does is it's in the definition and it simplifies it, and that's what you want. You want it easily read and easily understood. The second is and I talked to Supervisor Porcelli about this. What about the venue? Okay, because we're split venues, we're split jurisdictions. So you have Riverview, and Joe, if you want to comment on this, please do. And then you have Groseal. So do you have mirroring ordinances? Do you have an ordinance that's in Riverview that mirrors what Groseal and vice versa? That's what we were looking at as well. But like I said, for an ordinance, it needs to be clearly stated, clearly explained, and understood. And really what it comes down to, it's the safety of the public. Okay, and that's what we're most concerned about, is safety and control of that, and because it is Groseal's bridge. Well, it's of course half in Riverview, but it is our bridge, and we want to make sure that it's run safely and everything that's going across there does so accordingly. So,
Yeah, it's still our private property all the way to the line. I don't know if you want to call it north or west of the toll booths, but there's that diagonal line where we end and Wayne County begins on the road, but that's where we would end on the property too. But it's still Groseal going the whole. We still own it, and it's still private. That's still private property. And I just hope that under state law, Todd, and I apologize to you, I did not look into this. I wanted to hear what this was going to go on tonight. That, state law allows for bicycles to be in certain places, but on your own property, you can govern what you want or not want on your own property. We actually could say, what kind of vehicles if you wanted. That's how Paul got away with it all, because it's private property. So I wanted to hear tonight what you had. And
if I could, I'm just going this. So I did a little bit of research on this, and most of it came from tolls, private entities, and how they worded their language, and how they defined an e-bike. It categorized it, lumps it all into one category, and what they say about this is it's a roadway, or they call it a roadway authorized motor vehicle. It's a motor vehicle. It doesn't matter whether it's powered by gas, electricity. It says a motorized vehicle including a motorcycle, motor-driven cycle, moped, or other similar vehicle powered by an internal combustion engine, electric motor, or combination thereof. This is lawfully permitted to operate upon public roadway, and that is properly titled, registered, licensed, plated, insured, equipped, or otherwise authorized as required by applicable law upon the operation of a public roadway. So
where was that? I apologize, Todd. In the beginning, I missed what you said. Where is that from, or that definition?
So this was a culmination of, a lot of it came from private toll roads, private bridges, private entities, and how they were wording what their definition was.
What they considered
a motor vehicle that would be authorized to pass on their property.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay, and what they're saying is, if you're coming off of a public roadway, ingress, egress, however it is, They're saying it has to be able to operate on a public roadway before it crosses their bridge, their property, or on their toll.
That's understandable.
So I think that clearly states it, and it really, it narrows your thought on what's allowed. Do you want pedestrians? Do you want foot traffic on that bridge? You know, those are questions that you have to ask. I know personally, and Derek was up there just about every day when we had the Wayne County Bridge closed. You put a bicycle on there when the Wayne County Bridge is closed for any reason, and the backup and the problems that causes. I'm not against bicycle traffic, I'm not, but there's not a sidewalk on that toll bridge. You have 2 lanes of travel. Is that a safe passage? Then you know you're always gonna have that individual that's gonna try to pass them, and that's what, it's a safety issue.
I would like to compliment you for the work that you did. I know on Monday we got an email with a lot of your thoughts, and I really appreciated the definitions you supplied for bicycle, electric bicycle, personal mobility device, and then I believe the definition you just read applies to what I would consider to be a different class of electric or gas-powered mobility device, which is one which is licensed, insured, plated, and can operate on any roadway. So that kind of distinguishes between things like motorcycles, mopeds with licensed drivers versus e-scooter, e-bicycle, you know, that a younger person could have. It doesn't have a license. I thought your comments were thoughtful and articulate, and I also very much appreciated your additions regarding emergencies, which we did not have in our draft. Stating when the township has the authority to close the bridge or change the operation of the bridge. Maybe there's an accident, maybe you need to do an investigation, maybe there's a fire, and you added some really nice language for that too.
Thank you.
So just to let you know, since receiving that email on Monday, I kind of went back to the drawing board with Derek, and we took the draft that's in your packet and massaged it to include things that you gave us. Haven't had time yet to include the additional language today about licensed, insured type vehicles and to distinguish between the two. So that will still need some work. And that's why we're in discussion mode tonight and not action mode, because we still have some work to do on this, considering this issue. And the process for the township is for the work to go to the township attorney for final cleanup, massaging, make sure that it's consistent with recent case law, municipal law. That's not really a role we play. And that process should unfold as well. And I'm sure she has seen a lot of things regarding e-bikes, e-scooters, et cetera, et cetera. Also, just to clarify, and I think you all understand this well, but if the public's watching, again, we have 2 jurisdictions, the city of Riverview up to about the middle of the bridge, and then the township of Groseal from that point eastward. So when it comes to criminal type enforcement, you have 2 municipalities who are responsible for that, 2 different courts, 2 different police forces. So we do need to explore whether the city of Riverview would consider a companion ordinance that would look like ours. But I assume, depending on where the event is happening, you might not have any jurisdiction to come and deal with it if called by our bridge manager.
Correct.
So that's a little bit of a challenge. What we did add to this draft, though, which was in your packet, is some administrative remedies. Although we don't have the criminal authority for the entire facility, we do have the ability to decide to restrict access to the bridge or use of the bridge, and that would be another lever that we could have. And also, we have some language proposed regarding tolls. If you have a balance and you hit a gate and you need to pay us for the gate, we could look at your balance on your toll tag, and et cetera, et cetera. So those were some things we thought would give us a little more leverage. Okay, well, that was a word salad of a lot of things.
No, I think it, no.
If I could just mention, when we separate this, civil remedies are always allowed on private property. It's the criminal issues where we had that beginning part where we all met and there were some issues.
Yep.
I think, Todd, we talked about it on the phone. But for the civil remedies, that shouldn't be a problem. I can call John Allen tomorrow, the police chief of Riverview, but I did speak to him about everything that we were looking for, he had an ordinance for in his city. And now the civil remedies, again, are from the whole bridge all the way past, a little bit past, which includes the toll booth. Let's just say, whatever, somebody hit the toll booth. We still can put in the civil remedies for that on our private property, no matter if it's the city of Grosse Ile or city of Riverview, which might clear this up a little bit better. And the criminal end, when I spoke to him on the phone, we went through some of the things we were looking for, and he obviously has that all in Riverview. But what we need to do is maybe have another meeting and see exactly if you're looking at specific ordinances that you would like doubled up, let's just say, meaning
Right.
Riverview has them. They have everything from the larceny to fail to pay to the assaults to the whatever we had in the beginning ordinance that we had to change simply because of the jurisdiction being in the city of Riverview. So I get that, but I wouldn't mind having,
Yeah, definitely
I
we
mean-
need a conversation with the city of Riverview.
but I wouldn't mind having another sit down with us 3, 4,
Let's
if
do
you'd
it.
like to be there on this one, because this one does have to do with you now. I know everybody's busy, but
Oh, no, I'd be happy to do, I would like to do that.
I would just think that one more, that we bring it back to this group, so, these 3 can see the rest of it. I think that would be prudent for us. What do you feel? I mean, that we could do it?
Are you talking about the whole commission, or would
No,
you
no,
like us? Yeah,
The
I
group
please,
that
I
met,
would very
you
much
and
like to do
Derek
it.
met
I
before.
would very much like
We
to
were
do
in
it.
contact with Todd, but, Todd, if you want to be in
I'd like-
person with us, that would be
Sure.
It'd be great
great.
if you could be
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, that would be nice, but I think another meeting, just to solidify, because what we were talking about, and I don't want to confuse anybody, and I want to confuse myself here, but we were talking about criminal issues, civil remedies, civil issues, and issues of, it's kind of like a private property business owner on Macomb Street. Believe it or not, they're allowed to have anybody leave their establishment that they want, as long as they don't do it under, I believe it's Title VII, or, you know what I'm saying, under discrimination.
Discrimination.
And you can keep, that's how they ban people out of bars forever, and so you can do what you want on private property. So there's a separation here that we have to make sure is clear in that ordinance. And obviously it goes back to Kristen,
Yes.
and
the
we go from there.
The more we do before we send it back to Kristen, the better, because
Well,
how many
that's-
times does she need to?
It's what we want.
Yeah.
This group here is responsible for what we want, going over that bridge. And I'm not sure if the air, Todd, or the temperature of the township on bicycles, no pedestrians are allowed, but bicycles are allowed. That's correct, Maureen, right?
It is.
That's always been the rule.
Yeah, can I speak to that for a minute? We carried that over from permission that was
Yeah.
granted to bicycles by the bridge company. We just carried it over, and
Right.
now we're really thinking about that, because.
And I
yes,
fully understand that.
Your ideas.
I'm
and-
hearing all this for the first time, so,
Yes,
so
you are.
so when we're saying here, don't include the commission, because I wasn't included on the email on Monday. And from
Yeah.
somebody who's used a bicycle
We're
with
the-
the club, for my friends and neighbors for decades, if I'm gonna be asked to recommend or approve, I don't wanna hear about it live.
Absolutely, okay. And that is why this went from an action to a discussion.
And these are just recommendations
Yeah,
at this
because
point.
there's not a sidewalk on West River. There's not a sidewalk on most
Correct.
East River. Are we gonna stop bicycles and walking there?
Yeah.
I mean, we really have to think about overreach. We have an ordinance right now on Macomb Street. I told Patrick, I was on the phone the other day and I almost got hit by I'm 12-ish. My wife and I come now to CVS. So we already have things on the books that don't seem to work well. So applying more seems overreach.
But we do have to decide, I'm sorry.
I just
Keep
would
going.
like to be better prepared coming into this discussion. And when we use "we" as a commission, make sure the commission has read everything today.
And that's why I think we're having this discussion, is these are just recommendations, because I know Joe, Derek, myself, we've dealt with ordinances. It doesn't get done the first go-around. You're looking at it a fourth, a fifth time, because of suggestions or comments like yours. I mean, we're all looking back at it. We're using each other as a sounding board, saying, well, would this work, would this not work? That's, it's part of the process, as I like to call it, and I think a lot, maybe that may be an overused word, but it takes time to put something like this together, because once you do it, you want to make sure that it's right, and you want to make sure that it's agreed upon, and it's voted upon, and it's not that you only get one, but I like our e-bike ordinance now, I know that I have to take a strong look at that again, because things change, times change,
And we weren't trying to keep anybody out of it, Darrell.
No.
That's
No,
not.
it's just, I'm
Yeah.
coming up to speed, I'm hearing this, and it's just, I hear we, and I'm just like, I don't want it to be intended to say, well, we as a commission.
It's
Well,
not.
we as a
No.
commission has to vote and has to be knowledgeable on this and get all the information. But the subcommittee that was created to go do this
Right.
was Chris, myself.
Yeah, I didn't even realize there was a subcommission.
Well, do you remember a few meetings ago, we decided to meet, I mean, it was from one of the meetings.
Right.
And it was there because we have written ordinances and,
The ordinance I saw before had nothing to do with bicycles and
That's right.
e-bikes.
correct. That's why it came up now with Todd.
yeah,
And
because
then
it's
this
like you
happened
don't,
Monday.
you don't mention it,
Yeah,
so
that's
there's no
correct. You're
ordinance.
exactly correct.
And
That's why
something
this
happens, and
happened.
they say, well, you didn't say anything about bicycles in your ordinance. Let's say,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have an event, and you don't have it. You're like, well, was he supposed to be, or she's supposed to be on the bridge? And
But
that's
as
what
of
we
now,
don't.
bicycles and anything classified as a bicycle, Maureen, in the state law, the e-bikes are classified as bicycles, not motor vehicles. Would you allow an e-bike over the bridge right now?
They are going over the bridge, correct?
So they are going. So we're aligning with state law on that. Okay. All right. So how about we do this? I mean, I just think we need to get together, whoever you want.
I'm really
Yeah.
trying to explain, why this went from an action item to a discussion item tonight.
All right.
Recent events and comments that we received on Monday.
Okay.
And we're certainly not in final, obviously. And we're gonna have to make some decisions recommendations for the board
Yes,
regarding what do you want to allow on the bridge?
absolutely.
All bicycles, e-bikes, e-scooters, or only licensed motor, I don't even know what to call them, motorcycles,
Authorized.
mopeds, with it are insured and have a
Yeah.
licensed driver who's had to learn the rules of the road. And then when you say you have to obey the rules of the road, we know they know what they
Right.
mean. So there's a lot to think about here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's work to do.
All right.
In summary here, we had this ordinance, and we felt like, I think you felt like it was almost ready to go. Yeah. Except for the situation now that has come up with the bikes and the e-bikes. And it's like, well, we need to address that. And it needs more than just a discussion at this level. So
Yeah.
so you're gonna take it back to the
Yes.
committee?
Is the commission good with that?
Yeah.
I want to make sure
Yeah,
everybody's,
for the subcommittee to keep
Yeah,
working.
absolutely. I guess,
Uh-huh.
as Derek and Teresa, everybody sends packets before the meeting. Coming up to speed prior to the meeting, being prepared for the meeting is just the request.
understood.
Oh, of course.
No, understood.
And I did send
That's
an email this morning.
Genuine request.
Explaining why this wouldn't be an action item tonight.
Actually, I didn't know anything about the bicycle stuff.
Yeah.
I did have a clarifying question. On the bicycles, does it make a difference whether or not the person's a licensed driver? Like they'd have to be 16 or older and have or is that too granular to put in an ordinance?
Well, one of the questions that came up, and that's why we're having, again, this discussion is, what if the Wayne County Bridge is closed? And your only form of transportation is a bicycle? Then what? You don't let them go across? This is what we have to talk, these are just things that we need to talk about, or you as a commissioner or subcommittee need to
Yes.
talk about.
And-
There is always going to be an exception to the rule.
And similarly, if the Wayne County Bridge is closed and you have a bicycle going across less than 5 miles an hour, and everybody in the island needs to use the toll bridge, that's gonna be a
And that-
pickle too.
So maybe something that's added during bridge
Right.
closures that, we're not authorizing, bicycle traffic during that time period. And there's a way to word that and do it correctly, but that's just another suggestion.
The other thing I really liked that you did, so I want to share this now. When we worked on this, I was thinking about the fact that there's the bridge, we all think of the bridge, the part that goes over the water. But our facility is more than that. It's offices, it's the Bobcats, it's gates, it's toll booths.
Broachways.
So, you made the you called it the Groseal Bridge, Toll Bridge Facility. I'm liking it. So, we're thinking that this ordinance would be for the Groseal Toll Bridge Facility, and then, of course, we'll have an acronym.
And I call the other side the causeway. I think that's just from, so however, it's another definition, right? I mean, and you can get as descriptive as you want with it. Also, you don't want to get too confusing as well.
We also can encompass toll bridge private property area in a verbiage that covers everything we own. And you can do it that way too. It's whatever.
Okay.
We'll come up with something.
We'll keep working.
Yeah, we'll come up with something.
It'll be your Christmas present.
Joe, do we have another example of private property that's owned by a public entity such as Groseal?
Well, we have other cities that I checked into that own private property in other cities. Like, Riverview owns private property in Brownstown. Warren owns private property in Detroit, if that's what you mean. Or do you mean just Groseal? Groseal doesn't own anything anywhere.
I'm still trying to, once the township bought the bridge,
Right.
is it still considered private property since we use public funds and we're doing public bonding?
It's private property owned by the township, just as Groseal areas that are purchased. Like this is still private property. It is a public building you can walk in, but there's certain things you can't do. And we can enjoin or make rules for our property that we own. So we would own, like the Groseal Airport. I mean, you just can't go camp out at the airport. We can make rules that you enjoin people from doing certain things, just as we can do on the toll bridge. Because it is private property owned by Groseal Township by ordinance, you cannot do certain things. But it's gotta be by ordinance, not by word of mouth.
So I should consider it just like this building, like the township?
Yeah, and this building is
Okay,
open to the public, but there's certain
You're
things.
going back and forth of private property.
Yeah.
And we
It's-
just got done talking about tens of millions of dollars of taxes and bond raising
It's all
for the
purchased,
public.
correct, by public funds, we get that. But it's still people, you can enjoin certain people from certain things on public property that's open to the general public for a purpose.
The airport's a really good example,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
There is an ordinance about what you can and you cannot do out here at the airport.
Yeah.
And it might not hurt to go back to the ordinances, just look at that to see how that's regulated here, which is what we're trying to do down here.
I'd like that.
And from an event I spent this weekend, neighboring communities, city attorneys, everybody is going after this right now. So it's a tough decision to wrap their heads around.
They're going, I missed the first part.
Everybody's trying to get their hands around this e-bike. This is not
Oh.
anecdotal to Groseal.
That's right.
No.
And that is definitely why we wanted to go back to the township attorney before we recommend to the board, because I'm sure municipal attorneys are seeing, this is probably flooding their inboxes right now.
The easiest thing for some of the cities, townships, municipalities is just ban them altogether. That's what they're starting to do. We don't want to do that. I mean, I said in a post a week ago, I said the few ruin it for the many, and that's what we don't want to do. And I heard you use the term overreach. That's not what we're here to do. We just want to protect township residents, the people that live here, and make sure it's done right.
Yeah, well, when I hear no sidewalk, I'm thinking the rivers, like West River, East River. It just,
Right, but
and I drive down those roads every day, West River in particular, and I see the people on their bicycles. I see the people walking their dogs and pushing baby strollers, right? And there's no sidewalk, and that is a very narrow road, right? So challenges abound.
yeah. And the bridge, I mean, you look at the toll bridge, it's very narrow. It's 2 lanes of traffic. There's nowhere to go. At least the county bridge has sidewalks on both sides. I'm not making, exception, but that is a very narrow space,
like
and there's
West River.
nowhere to go.
It's like West
It's not-
River, where you have the embankment of houses, and then it drops off.
Yeah.
Very tight there.
Well, it's very good for all of you to think about this while we're continuing to work on the ordinance and understand the complexity of the decisions that we'll be making.
And I'm willing to
Our
help
recommendations.
whatever I can do. You have a good,
We're gonna get hold of you.
you have good people
Got an
around you
hour
that
or
are
so.
knowledgeable, Joe and Derek, and
Thank you so much for your efforts in moving this forward.
thank you.
It's
We're,
not an easy thing to
No.
solve,
No, it's
Yeah.
not, but who said it was ever easy, right?
and we're not in isolation here. We have the township, we have the state, we have, you know, it's a complex issue.
So, all right, well,
Any
thank
further
you.
discussion on that? Thank you very much.
But I
for
guess
your
before I
comments.
step away, any other questions or, okay, all right, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. You ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're looking at the request. It's been requested to say, how do we handle construction projects? In particularly, of course, we're talking about the bridge. But this is not the first project that the township has handled. So I've asked Derek, so he'll, to take a look at that and give us a little update of to how you handle projects, who's responsible for what is the governance factor that goes into all this, working with our engineer and our contractor.
So Swahio and I put together just a quick presentation on this, and we made it generic but also specific to our project, and kind of take you from the beginning to the end of the engineer's involvement, who handles the project, who manages the project from the beginning to the end. The contract that we have with H&H is very similar to a lot of the other contracts that we have for projects that are engineered and managed by our civil engineers. In this case here, it's H&H, and they have a couple of subcontractors, and the remainder of our municipal projects, generally it's Charles Rain's company, but because of the specific nature of this project, we brought in specialized engineers for those services. So we'll just go through a couple of these slides, and then if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt and ask at any point, so we can hopefully clarify any questions or information that we have presented here. So specific to our project, obviously the process that we're currently undergoing, and I believe the chairman had mentioned this before, bidding. Our bids are due September 11th at 4 o'clock. There were pre-bid site visits that took place on August 5th and August 11th of 2026. The bid opening is going to take place here at Township Hall on September 11th at 4 p.m., and that is a public opening. So that'll be at our clerk's office. The bid results will be read out loud. We are not privy to the bids prior to that date and time, and that's for the benefit of the competitive nature of the bidding. So sealed bids are required. And then they're all disclosed at one time, so one contractor doesn't have the benefit over another of knowing somebody else's pricing. The engineering company that has been hired to assist us with this project will then review and evaluate the bids from the period that it's opened until our phone call on September 14th, which is that following Monday. And generally what happens after that is the engineer takes those bids and then reviews them for their completeness and making sure all the numbers align, that they have the proper bonding that's been provided for within that bid document, normally like your bid bond, and also they might check references so that they feel confident when they make a recommendation of award to the township that that vendor is a competent and capable vendor. I don't know, Sohail, if you want to add anything to that. Okay. Okay. So as I had mentioned, the process, review and evaluation of the bids takes place with the engineer. They may do a pre-award meeting if warranted. So if they're, go ahead.
the term engineer, we have so many engineers working on this. Can we be more specific on the review and evaluation of the bids?
So H&H would be the one that's doing the review and evaluation.
So you're not involved in,
No.
okay, just,
So-
thank you.
Charles Rain's company, Ohio's involvement in this project is limited. He sits on the Bridge Commission as a non-voting member to provide the Bridge Commission with engineering clarification and advice. If you have any questions, we believe when this ordinance or this commission was crafted, that having that resource available to you would be beneficial. So that's why the finance director is there, because there's a lot of money that plays into the operation of the bridge. But there's also, we knew a lot of construction that would be taking place right now and also into the future, right, with preventative maintenance and things of that sort. So Charles Rain's companies, their involvement is primarily associated with advising you on bridge-related items, but the actual engineering of this project, all of that has been outsourced to H&H and their subcontractors,
It was
subconsultants.
in particular to this review and evaluation of the bid.
It is H&H.
So H&H will come back with a recommendation to our project manager, which is you.
That is correct, yes. Yep. So in addition to that, if the bids do come in above what our budget allowance is, they would then be the ones that would perform performance or value engineering to review where things could be changed to reduce the overall cost.
Do you have a timing associated with these steps?
Yes,
Because-
so
Is that in this deck?
it is not.
Okay, so we just talked about extending our meeting to the 23rd. Bids are open, bids are due on the 11th. We're gonna have a meeting on the 14th. Am I getting the days right?
No,
So
there-
14th to the 23rd, we're gonna go through all this.
Right. So review and evaluation of bids would start on the 14th. So they're going to get them on that Friday, and then they'll take the weekend, look through them, meet with you on the 14th, but they probably won't be able to formulate an official recommendation probably until later that week. That's why we're pushing back your meeting from what would have been, I think, the 18th or 19th back to the
So I
23rd.
get that.
23rd, yeah.
Go back to
But
your other
some,
slide. Go back
some
to
of
the
these
slide.
things, we don't know whether they will be necessary or not.
Well, I
So-
can guarantee you the third bullet's gonna be necessary.
Well, we don't know that for sure yet.
Well, I bet a lunch on it.
We'll take you up on that. I'm fingers crossed. Pre-award meetings, those aren't a given either.
Well, that estimate that H&H put together was almost 18 months old. A lot
They
of things
did-
have changed in the construction industry in 18 months.
They did do a revision probably 5 months ago or so.
Well,
Yeah,
But-
something.
Anyway,
But I understand
I
your
just don't
concerns.
wanna, I don't wanna have to meet a timeline of the 23rd
That-
in order to compress the schedule.
Right, that
This is
timeline,
very important, these
Right.
are very important steps.
that timeline is tentative, because if bids do come in higher than what the budget provision is, then yeah, you can throw that all out the window. So, yeah, we're not gonna be tied into that. You're correct, that work will not happen. Because what'll end up having to happen is either them negotiate with the low bidder to be able to pare down the project, or redesign it, or re-put out the project for bid, okay, with that redesign, okay?
At this point, we've got it out for bids. We have an engineer's estimate. If it comes in at that, we can proceed. If the bids come in high, of course, then we gotta do all kinds of things, and we have to figure out where we're at going forward.
And that's
Yeah.
why I think
And
Yeah, no, that,
it's very optimistic, but
your points are valid.
Right.
But at this point, if the project comes in on budget, under budget, and we can proceed, then we can talk about who's responsible for what as we go forward.
right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and
these slides are based upon that assumption, yes.
But just so I'm found, Chris, it doesn't make sense. They're gonna get it, we're gonna receive it at 4 o'clock on a Friday,
Correct.
and ideally, they're gonna give us a recommendation on Monday?
no.
No.
They're gonna present it to us on Monday.
Oh, they're gonna present all the bids?
Yeah, and their
Okay.
thoughts.
Okay, thank
They
you.
won't make a recommendation, as Derek said, maybe till later the week.
Okay,
It could even be the following Monday
so that's
perhaps.
what we should expect Monday, is just to hear.
It depends
Readout.
upon,
they're just gonna have
Okay.
them, say, here's the contractor, here's their bid, and
Right.
it's just a
bids. yeah.
summary.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Because otherwise unless you're there on Friday at 4 o'clock, which I wouldn't be surprised if you guys don't attend that. I'd be surprised I would be surprised if you didn't attend it. I expect you would probably want to be there when those are open. You know, the first time you would see that would be on Monday, and they would present those to you, okay? So yeah, to Chris's point, performance and value engineering, all those come if the bids come in bad, right? Also, depending upon whether the contractor that is low bidder, whether they've had experience with them, whether they're confident with them, some of these things will fall into line, such as checks of references, pre-award meeting if warranted, as is mentioned here. Sometimes pre-award meetings are held if we, maybe don't have a feeling that the contractor has a good grasp on what the project entails. Like Ohio had mentioned, let's just say that the project is estimated at $20 million and they come in at $4 million. Well, okay, we need to have a meeting to make sure that you guys
Big clarification,
understand what you bid on, okay? Checks of references and financial information by H&H. And then also is gonna be an evaluation of the bids based upon the best value selection scoring criteria, which has been built into those bid documents. So if you recall, you know, we have a matrix in there that takes into consideration how long the project would be, and we've got a value placed on that. So we'll score the bids they'll score the bids based upon that criteria. And then once again, recommendation award by H&H to the commission. The recommendation would also include a contingency, and why that is important to clarify is to Commissioner McCartney's point about change orders, and I'll go over that in subsequent slides. So the Bridge Commission would then review H&H's recommendation and then make a recommendation to the Grosse-Ile Township Board. That recommendation would then be taken up possibly at the following Grosse-Ile Township Board meeting. If the board takes the recommendation of the commission and the engineer, they would then approve that contract with that vendor. Once that approval has taken place, there is the issuance of the contract documents to the successful bidder for signature. So H&H puts together those contract documents on our behalf, and they provide those to the bidder. H&H reviews the insurance, they obtain the insurance and payments and performance bonds. They make sure that the payments and performance bonds are proper, that the insuring companies are based in the state of Michigan, and that's provided to them for review and approval. So that covers the fourth bullet item there. Once all that is complete, the township would then sign the contract. Generally, the township supervisor and the clerk are the signatories for all contracts in the township. So those would be the ones that would do that. And at some point, prior and post that, we would have the bond issuance consideration. So once we have a bid amount, and hopefully it's a good bid, and we feel confident that we're going to award, we will start the bonding process. The actual bond closure, so the closing of our loan, would take place sometime after the contract is signed, but prior to the work commencing, okay? So, because we want to have the funds in place prior to shovel in the ground so that we have the money to be able to pay the contractor, okay? So that bond issuance period of time would overlap, the bond receipt, the bid receipt, and then the actual construction, okay? Any questions there? The engineers also do a couple other things. They do pre-construction meetings. So prior to the contractor doing work, they would ensure that the contractor and the township are on the same page about the construction process. So they facilitate and schedule those and conduct those. In addition, H&H does the securing of the permits that are necessary to allow for the construction to take place. So, do you want to expand on pre-con meetings at all, or?
No, technically, they like to make sure that schedule is submitted at that point. The contractor is comfortable finishing the job in a timely manner. They look at their subcontractors' listing. They look at their material deliveries. All of the elements that take place during construction will be discussed at that meeting. to make sure that they're on board delivering this project.
Any questions there? No?
Christine, you'd looked into the permits and stuff before, and I know you've had area of expertise. Do we have any like long lead permitting, like through Eagle, that we need to be concerned about?
The Eagle permit's in hand, I understand, the SHPO approval's in hand, they're waiting on the Corps of Engineers. Hopefully that'll be any day.
Yep. So,
So don't worry about it.
so keep in mind, this slide deck has, started with the bidding process, right? Okay. What hasn't been included in this is all the work that's happened up to that point, which you guys have all been part of,
Yeah,
the
right.
design. So along with the design, has been an identification of the necessary permits. So the permit process has already been ongoing for quite some time already. So securing permits, although it's here, that's just securing them, making sure that they're in hand. But the process to get those has been ongoing for.
Will they
quite a
have to pull a permit through a township permit for building or electrical?
Good question.
Yes, we do
That's
sometimes
right, the fees.
require the contractor to pull those permits. The issue there, though, is on projects like this, a lot of times the expertise, the township inspectors don't have the expertise to be able to inspect projects of this size. So a lot of times what we'll defer to then is the engineer to do the inspection. Okay.
And I do believe that the successful awardee will be required to get the Wayne County permits.
That's correct.
So that is an outstanding item.
Okay.
Yeah, the
For
plans have
the
been
work we wanna
approved, so all
do
they have to do,
on
go
West
pull a
Jefferson.
permit from the county at that point.
Right or wrong, when
Yeah.
we hear permits, I think it'd be,
Oh.
because I knew that was your area of expertise.
Next slide.
Yeah, permits and environmental studies are part of H&H contract.
Well, this is still H&H's responsibility.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes. And technically, all of this is H&H's responsibility.
Okay.
Although they might sub out some of the work, they're the prime, they have subs that handle certain things. Like, for example, during construction, project oversight, I believe they've subbed that out to Fishback.
Right.
So Fishback is a sub to them, but my issue, if I have an issue, is with H&H. and then they-
H&H is our owner's rep on this
Right, they
project.
deal with the sub, yeah. So during construction, what are the engineers responsible for? Construction oversight, so generally the engineer will be on a project of this size, on site every day, ensuring that the work is being done to the specifications that they have put together, okay? Construction management, making sure the project stays on schedule, they're essentially the owner's rep at the construction site. They review shop drawings and they accept the shop drawings. They process RFIs, review and processing of billing. So what happens is they'll review a contractor invoice and then they'll make a recommendation to pay to the township after they've vetted the invoice to ensure that the work actually was done, that we're happy with the work being done, and then we'll get an invoice to pay only after that fact. Sworn statements, waivers, things of that sort, such as like, that their subcontractors have been paid, to ensure that the prime isn't just taking the money and not paying the subs, and then we have issues there. Coordination with surveyors, inspectors, and testing agencies, daily inspection reports, and progress meetings. So basically, once again, being the township's representative at the bridge and the conduit from the bridge project back to Township Hall. Okay? Any questions about what's going on a daily basis down there with the engineers? No?
But just to clarify, Grozeal will issue the purchase order or the contract to the GC, and then, right?
Yes.
H&H is not gonna hold the paper on the
Correct.
project.
Our contract is with the prime,
Right.
whoever that is. Yeah.
Okay.
How are change orders addressed? So let's just say we have the project is ongoing and there's an unforeseen condition that occurs, okay? What first happens is the contractor goes to the engineer and says, hey, we've got this issue. It's gonna present potentially an increase in cost, or sometimes it's a reduction in
Sure,
cost, right?
they go both ways.
So the engineer at that point would review the technicalities of it, what the technical aspects of it, the cost, the time impact, how it's going to impact the schedule, and then they would come to the township and either with a a validated request for the change order based upon their review or lack thereof, right? They'll bring it to our attention and say, hey, we don't think this is valid. This is something we need to address with the contractor because this is something that shouldn't have been an unforeseen condition or something along those lines, okay? At that point, I, as a township rep, would then say, okay, if you guys feel that this is proper, then
You guys being the engineer?
the engineers, yes,
Okay.
then I would administratively go ahead and authorize the change order. And what gives me that governance or that ability is not necessarily the contract with the engineers, it's actually the township's policy, so how we handle things, and it's also in general conditions of the contract, okay, with the GC on the project, okay? And what gives that to me administratively is an allowance within the approval by the township board of a contingency to take into consideration potential change orders. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll say, let's just say it's a $20 million project. What will be requested in the board action is like a 10% contingency to give me the latitude to be able to approve those change orders within the approved budget that the township board has provided.
So there's not a level, approval level that you have, as long as it stays within that contingency budget, you have the authority to
Right, because the
approve it.
township is given the authority to spend up to that level,
Okay.
okay? Now, if there is a change order that comes up that is in excess of that, well, then at that point, it has to come back to
Sure.
the township board for consideration, because essentially, that's outside of the approved budget
It's a
amount.
big miss,
Okay.
and we're in trouble.
So, and the reason that we do this is because we understand that change orders can impact the project schedule. If we have a long, prolonged approval process to deal with a change order, it can provide large delays in the project, and also can result in additional cost, right? If a contractor has downtime because they're waiting 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to get an approval from the township, they're not gonna let their equipment sit there without charging you, and that's
Right.
generally a condition of the contract. So that's how we usually handle change orders. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, again, the general conditions are very tight as far as this process. There are considerations for the engineer, for the contractor, and for the owner. They are all delineated in the general conditions, how to process these things.
Yeah, I guess I'm seeing this revised dollar, and I heard 10%. I don't understand why we just don't see a dollar threshold matrix, like, say it's a $10 project, and are you allowed to quickly turn a change order on 10% of that? I don't know what's gonna happen. If somebody comes to you and says, it's a $2 million project, or a $2 million change order, does that fall underneath that approved threshold? I don't know what the thresholds are.
It's within, the way we usually handle is within the allowance that the township board has
Contingency.
provided, a total.
Why can't we have that in writing? What is that allowance?
It's usually 10%, but I will tell you that the engineers will make a recommendation in their award for a contingency amount, yes.
They may recommend 15% based on the complexity of the project. They
Right.
may recommend 5%.
So at what point will we actually know what that percent is?
When it comes
Once
into
bids
you
are
for
done.
recommendation, when they recommend it to you, they'll give you that dollar amount and they'll give you the contingency.
Yeah,
Who's
so
they?
H&H. So H&H, when they make a recommendation to this commission for an award of a contract, they will say, H&H recommends that we award a contract to contractor X at a dollar figure of X with a contingency of X,
For the total. of-
And then that gives you the authority to work within that contingency amount.
assuming the township board approves that, yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
The
And
numbers established by the township when.
I'm just
yeah,
looking for
right,
the numbers in writing.
Right, yeah.
I'm a simple man.
And that's when it would happen.
It will become part of the contract, so
But
the contract
that-
will have that number in there.
That'll be part of our recommendation as this
That's
goes
correct.
down the
You
road.
approve it, then
This
go to the board.
commission will say, yes, we need a 15% contingency on a $40 million contract, so.
Right.
So it gives you agility, speed, but, so that's good. To me, this is aligned with the bonding of Series 2. I want to know the annual debt service and the duration, right? It's a big number, right? And it's something that we need to be able to understand. Okay, so when the bid comes through, the recommendation, H&H is going to provide you with, say, hey, here's what we think your contingency percent should be, so that you can work quickly and
That is correct, yes.
perfect.
So in their letter of recommendation, they will state, we recommend contractor X for a contract amount of, let's say, $5 million
Yeah.
with a contingency of 10% for a total of whatever the number is.
Okay.
And
But
that's
they're
what you-
not, the
that's what
contractor's
you
not awarded that, that's what we
Correct.
have
Right,
authorized to
right.
spend.
Yes, correct.
That's what you accept, and you recommend it to the board. Once the board accepts it, it becomes
Right.
part of the contract, and it gets signed, and
Right.
that's the end of it.
And Derek, I know we can rely on you. If you get a big ticket change order early on in the project and you see what chunk that's gonna take out of your contingency.
Yes.
Obviously.
I'll just
you're not
jump on
gonna
my
just-
e-bike and come
Yeah.
over.
Right, there you go, there you go.
Obviously, you're gonna be thoughtful and engage the right people to decide, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to place that responsibility solely on me, especially if you have a large
So
change
that's an
order.
important part then. So the contingency is an accrual. It's not for every change order.
Correct,
Right.
right.
So, okay, that's
Yes.
point of
They,
clarification.
the board sets the top limit, the max, the cap. I can't exceed that. We can't exceed that. The township can't exceed that without an approval beyond that. Plus, to Christine's point, you know, a large change order, which eat into a large portion of the contingency, could potentially change the scope of the job, you know, which you guys are gonna wanna
Absolutely.
understand about. So, you know, something minor, no big deal, but if it's something significant, it will,
Right.
not by, you know, required policy come back to you, but just from a courtesy standpoint, you know, come to you for consideration and information, right?
Is there another slide on change order, or should we ask all?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So change orders that are submitted by the contractor are reviewed by the engineer for validity, and if valid, are permitted by the township policy, not the engineering spec or contract document to be authorized by administration. Because I think the question was, is it built into the engineering documentation? If the change order that arises, it brings the project beyond the project approved budget, then the change order will go back to the commission, township board for approval. We already addressed this. If the design is appropriate, ensure we avoid contract. This design is appropriate to ensure we avoid project construction delays which arise from elongated approval process. We touched on that already. And checks and balances exist within the engineer, with the engineers being involved in reviewing these change orders. So it's not, you know, any one individual, you know, making this determination. It comes with the professionalism and the experience and endorsement of the engineers to ensure that, you know, there is a third party that's reviewing these to ensure that they're accurate and legitimate. I think that's the last one, so.
Are we gonna talk about the communication structure as part of the change order process?
I don't believe I have a slide on that. So what specific question did you have? How does it get to Township Hall?
How does the board, how does the commission, how does the public stay informed? Because in the engineering contract, they talk about a public information plan as part of the transformation, or transportation management plan. So, for example, if there's a change order for $1 million on a Monday, how soon before Chris is formally notified, or Patrick, or, you know, any other commission member, is just so we're staying current, because we're meeting monthly right now. Or is that not, I'm trying to understand what the protocol on the communication plan is.
Yeah, and we might need to address that, right? What the expectation is from the commission, for Township Hall to the commission, right? You know, as far as this, the size of this project, the township's gonna be in constant communication with the engineers, on what's going on down there. We do have a rep at the bridge, and that's Maureen, you know, but I will be accessible at all times for any issues that may arise. You know, we do need to establish, you know, our schedule with H&H as far as, you know, calls and meetings, no different than what we've done with the design process, so that you're aware of what's going on and how the progress is going. But, you know, we'll have to have that conversation with Ann to see what, we will do.
I mean, at a minimum, a weekly.
Yeah.
A weekly project review,
Progress meetings.
Right.
progress meetings, I mean,
Usually those are happening
yeah,
every
we're
2
just,
weeks.
there's a lot that a lot of this will come will become clear as really the bids, the structure, the
Right.
timing, right? Are we gonna work 2 shifts? Are we gonna be, you know, when are we gonna start, all this stuff. So yes, there's as long as we all understand, and it's this, thank you both for putting this together.
Yes.
Really helps clarify what my concerns were, because it's good to know H&H has through their subs or whoever, the boots on the ground, the superintendent or whoever, that engineer that's gonna be looking at this subcontractor, you know, logistics, safety, quality, all of that stuff as the project goes. There are eyes and ears and boots on the ground for the project, so. And the rest of this really helps clarify change orders, communication, you know, how RFI is handled, you know, unforeseen conditions, all of that.
Chris?
And I think your point about, we've had every other week, basically, an engineering review meeting. And we probably will continue doing something similar during construction, as a construction update meeting.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering as far as.
Not
for best
established yet,
practice-
but I would assume.
We're talking about risk mitigation, we're talking about contingency amounts. Does it make sense is it best practice to have a change log to say change order
Oh,
1,
there
2,
will
3?
be.
There will be.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
and then we can say, hey, we're 50%
Yeah.
of our
Oh, yeah, that's all
contingency budget.
tracked.
yep,
Absolutely.
So is that gonna be a product of
Yeah,
this?
it does.
absolutely.
Change order,
And who's
exactly
gonna
what you
own
said.
that? H&H?
A change log.
H&H will have that, yeah.
Okay,
Change
so-
management.
So I should expect to see a change log.
Change management process is part of this, yes.
So following construction, we move beyond the construction process. H&H is responsible for project substantial completion evaluation and punch list preparation, okay? And we also will be part of that punch list preparation. If we witness things or see things that we're not happy with, they'll consult with us on that. And obviously, they will put the majority of that together though, because they as engineers know whether that project performed the way that it was intended to. Final completion evaluation, as-built documents, operation and maintenance documents review, training, and then project closeout. So that's after construction has completed or is wrapping up. Any questions about their involvement post-construction? You want to add anything?
I'm sure there will be as this progresses, but no, this is really helpful, thank you.
And that is it.
Yeah,
So
so,
you send this out?
I can, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yep.
I would like to
Very
have
good.
it.
so I think this answers the change order process, the signature and dollar thresholds. It's gonna be defined by contingency as part of the awarded bid. And then for the communication structure, we should expect some change.
Yeah, we'll
management process.
formalize that as we get closer.
Yeah.
Okay, and is there like a standard template for a change order that, because
Sure.
you've done this, both
Yeah.
of you have done this professionally for years, right?
Yeah, it's a change order to the contract.
I know, but a change order in my line of work probably is different than your change order.
Right.
It just describes the situation, what it is, who's involved, the
Right.
questions, all that. Was there an RFI, and then the RFI referenced in it?
And because it doesn't
Cost.
modify the contract amount
Timeline.
itself,
It's
it's
a
going to be a
contract
modification of the
change to
contract too.
Yeah, I understand what change, I just
Yeah,
wonder if
okay.
it takes a certain.
Fundamentally,
format.
they're very similar, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is a form that they use that will state the contract amount, then the change order amount, then the new
Plus,
contract amount.
minus.
If there's a change in timing also, that's included in there. And that gets signed by the township, by the contractor, and by the engineer.
And I'm assuming the change order always explains why the change is needed, and it identifies how the cost was determined, and that it's appropriate, et cetera, et cetera.
If it's not on the same page, could be a supplement or an exhibit to
Okay.
it that will be attached to it that describes exactly why and how much, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Derek, who will be doing all of your other jobs while this is going on?
Right.
Joe?
This is a lot.
Not my job.
I have found that if you have competent engineers, it makes your job so much easier. And I have all the
Okay.
confidence in the world in the engineers that the township has hired to conduct this project or
You
help
know
with
to
this
pull the
project.
cord if you need help.
Yeah, yep.
I'll ask these layman questions as far as, on the change orders, do they ever have to go out for competitive bid? Is there ever a timeline? Okay.
I mean, if there's something that's different in terms of, if it's a unit price kind of a thing and you want to make sure you're getting value for money, but you've already got established cost and that would just slow everything down
We're not,
tremendously.
it's not an obligation,
No.
I guess, the question, okay.
Yeah.
I think I've seen before, maybe I've given you hard times. If we got a change order and the contractor wants to use a sub that, we
Yes.
think that they could do better, we'll say, hey, we would like you to go get some different pricing on that.
So you have that leverage.
Yeah, that's the only time I think I've ever debated on a contractor or a unit price on a change.
Yeah, we recommend somebody that can do it cheaper, better, we're familiar with. So.
Kind of like Joe with the lights. Well done, sir. Well done, sir.
And that was also Derek's job, because he had to make one of the
That was
numbers.
Margie's job. Margie did that, yeah, Margie did.
I think it's interesting to note here that this contract has a lot of effort into the construction follow-up, the H&H contract. The design portion of their contract is $1.452 million. That's the design. The construction side of their contract, including their subs, of course, the design was including subs as well. The construction is 1.975. So the construction
Management.
fee is larger than the design fee. So there's a lot of effort going into following this construction.
That's a great point.
That's not always typical in a typical architectural engineering construction project.
Would you figure you have somebody, probably multiple individuals from the engineering firm there for the duration of the project, which could be up to
Yeah.
a year and a half,
Yeah,
maybe
as
a
you
little
know-
longer, so.
You know, Chris, it's probably 25% is typical for an architectural firm in following construction.
And
So
any
this
use-
is much, much stronger than that.
Any of you that live near the toll bridge on the commission will probably save some money if these engineers could stay at your house rather than lodging in the area.
I saw that,
Hey, I have
they're just,
I have a suite we can sublease.
There you go.
I saw
right there.
the teams
around the
coming out of
We
Okemos.
can do Airbnbs
Yeah.
now.
Right, Kevin?
I'm also kind of thinking though, with
we
that
can?
heavy weight in the construction side of this, that really helps hold the design people accountable for their design work too. Because they've got to oversee the construction, and if there's a spec issue,
Yeah, and that,
that's in their mirror.
that also goes into the change order conversation, because the tighter the spec,
Yes,
the better the oversight,
yes,
the less opportunity for change orders.
yep.
So,
Have we worked, I know Fishback was involved when the bridge got stuck, when it was over-rotated. Have we worked with Fishback as a community several times, or?
we have, they did all of our asset management work for our wastewater and our water system. They're very well known, very well respected. I think they did some environmental work for us actually on the toll bridge
When you
pre-purchase
You
as
said
well.
asset management, what was it, what did they do with that? Did they inventory and evaluate the current state of the
They
facility?
did an asset inventory, condition assessment,
Okay.
CRE for it, so it's a full report that Eagle requires. They prepared it and sent
For
it.
the cap, for
Actually, they
the
do that
assets,
every
right?
year on the sanitary system side,
Really?
and every 5 years on the water side.
We didn't select Fishback, that was H&H's responsibility to select their subs. We didn't have anything to do with that. But I think that them selecting Fishback was representative of how they're viewed in the industry.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Great job.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sahil, too.
Thank you.
Hold our
Clarifies
breath
a
till the
lot.
19th, or the whatever.
That was an education.
Okay, that concludes our discussion items. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's any public comment,
Kevin Flavin, Park Lane. I just wanted to say this was a very interesting meeting and thank everybody, especially the folks that volunteered their time to do this, the commission. Great questions and building confidence as we go. I'd also like to say thank you for the Bridge Commission for reviewing the Bendzinski proposal. We're going to sell another tranche of bonds for $38 million. I think that Grozil is spending approximately $60 million on the Bay Bridge, and I believe it's better and welcome that it was reviewed by the board. More eyes are better than less eyes, and it adds to the transparency and openness for the taxpayer. And I'm glad that you're talking about communicating all of this with the public to keep them informed. So thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome.
Thank
thank
you.
you for your kind words. All right, anybody have anything else? Then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very